Okay, hi. So I am coming to you today on my husband's camcorder from high school. Um, it's honestly just really low effort, and I have been wanting to make videos, but I don't want to put in the effort, honestly. I just don't. So, yeah, it's in like 144p. I don't know what it's actually, and I think it's in like 400. So if you're wondering, if it's like your headphones or something, it's not. The light just keeps coming in and it's giving just like the craziest lighting right now. I'm just in front of our record player. And yeah, I'm gonna show you some of the cool books that that I've gotten while at the thrift store. So I'm gonna start off with the first one that's it's a little out there. Okay, it's a little out there. This one is the Viking Book of Poetry for the English speaking world. Yeah. Chosen and edited by Richard Aldington. Okay, this is getting a little... I kind of love the sunflowers, but like I feel like I'm gonna be the only one. Is that better? What about that? Okay, that's good enough for me. Okay, so anyways, sorry about that. So I got this, and I don't know, because I was like flipping through it and I felt like a thing that's challenging for me with poetry books is I just feel like maybe I love a couple of the poets' works and poems, but I don't love like a collection of their poetry. And this is obviously a bunch of different people, and I feel like when I was flipping around I was consistently finding things that I liked. So that's why, even though it's a huge hefty tome that I will never work my way completely through, I just thought it was pretty. And so here I just open up to a random page. This is Longfellow, and this one's called My Lost Youth, and this is the first time I'm reading it, so I don't even know if it's good, but my lost youth is a topic I'm always very sad about and kind of melancholic about, whatever the hell that means. So this one says, often I think of the beautiful town that is seated by the sea. Often in thought go up and down the pleasant streets of that dear old town, and my youth comes back to me. And a verse of a Lapland song is haunting my memory still. A boy's will is the wind's will, and the thoughts of youth are long, long thoughts. I can see the shadowy lines of its trees and catch its sudden gleams, the sheen of the far surrounding seas and islands that were the Hephzibes of all my boyish dreams, and the burden of that old song, and it murmurs and whispers still. A boy's will is the wind's will, and the thoughts of youth are long, long thoughts. And it goes on, but I just think that's beautiful. Like, that was just flipping to a random page. Serenade is another poem that's on the other side of the page. Stars of the summer night, far and yon azure. Okay, no, I'm not gonna. Sometimes poetry sounds better in your brain than it sounds out loud. And so I was struggling when I was getting books, because there was a lot of really good books, and it was kind of one of those things where it's like, what are books that I think I could like enough that I would want to keep once I have read them, because I kind of have a pretty strict standard for after I read a book. If it's not like 5 stars for me, if it's not something I foresee myself reading again, if it's not something that has a really special place in my heart, I want to get rid of it. I don't want to hold on to it. And so yeah, and so I tried to pick books that I thought could have like an impact on me that I might actually want to keep, just because there's a lot of books that I'm like, that's probably a good read, but I could borrow that from the library and read that on my Kobo, which is the Canadian version of a Kindle, which I do use a lot because I do go home and like visit my family and stuff. And so that's kind of my thought process behind it. Yeah, so the first book that I got was called Before We Were Yours. This is something that I have seen a lot about on Goodreads. It has really good reviews. And I'm actually one of those weirdos that likes to kind of go into books blind, so I don't even fully know what this is about. But I always love to like look at Goodreads reviews and just kind of skim the non-spoilers and see what people say. And honestly, this is like amazing reviews, and I'm a little bit worried that it's gonna be like Nicholas Sparksies or something, but I don't know, we'll have to see. I hate the cover. I think it's awful, just awful. It looks so tacky. But I'm hoping that the book is better. The next one is one I've already read, and it is called Wonderland with a U instead of an O, by Jennifer Cody Epstein. Sorry, the other book that I just mentioned before we were yours is by Lisa Wingate. But this one is called Wonderland, and it is set in World War II and the present day, which I think is it wouldn't be our present day. So it's like the 80s, late 80s, I think. And then I think present day and you know, World War II. And I don't want to give a lot away. Some of it is in letters. Some of it is in just kind of skipping between timelines. And I will say this is one of the only books that I have ever read where I do not favor one person's viewpoint or perspective. I genuinely found the way that it unfolded to be really beautiful and really just like a good story. Like a good story. You know what I mean? The characters felt fleshed out. The story felt fleshed out, well thought out. I didn't prefer one storyline over another, and I was just really impressed because I've not really heard of this, but when I was at the library and I saw it for sale, I was intrigued, and it had really good reviews on Goodreads, and so I took a chance and I do not regret it. So this is Wonderland, and I highly recommend it. The next book that I have here is called Peace Like a River by Leaf Enger. This is a book that I saw my friend recommend, and I trust her reading taste quite a bit. And she basically said that she really loved it. And then when I looked it up online, a lot of people were like, how have I never heard of this book before? Like, this is such an amazing book. And people were like really raving about it. And so I feel like I have hair, yeah. People were really raving about it. And so my hesitation with it is that it has, I think, a young kid as the main protagonist of the story. And I hate stories generally that have kids as the protagonists. I generally find it to be really boring and just like childish, you know, because it's from a child's perspective, unless it's somebody observing maybe a child going through life in certain circumstances, then maybe I find that a bit more interesting. But when it's like a kid's perspective, but I've heard that it's really good, and so I thought, from the way people were reviewing it, I thought that if I did like it, it could be one of those kind of favorite books. And so I thought, you know, why not try it? And so I saw that and I got it. The next book is called The Words Between Us by Erin Bartels. This seems like a heartwarming book about, is that highlighter? Not like eye care, but no. Oh, that was kind of creepy. It's somebody walking by. This is about, I think, basically like a bookseller and this guy, and they keep going back and forth for like decades, and then it's like, you know, a sweet little romance happens, I think. But I think it's, from what I read, people really liked it, and it seemed heartwarming. And I don't love romance novels, but this one seemed like the kind of romance novel I could like. And I think it's a romance. So again, I love to go into books blind. It's a thing that my friend had suggested, and not something I'd ever done before. And I like the idea of it, and it's been working for me, because let me tell you, I read The Secret History and everybody brags about it, everybody loves it, and they just like, it is the best, it is the best. Okay. Honestly, I think that kind of ruined it for me. I had such high expectations going into it that I was like, yeah, this is good. Yeah. Like, I can see why it's hyped, but is it like my absolute favorite book of all time? No. If I had maybe read it without having all the hype, I probably would have been the one hyping it to other people. So it's just one of those things where it's like, I think too, just knowing so much of the plot, because people give you like reviews where they tell you every like little thing that's gonna happen. Not actually, but they're like, so there's this group of students and something happens and you know, and you're just like, okay, so I know like the whole plot. And so as things are plotting along, it just feels kind of predictable instead of like, oh wow, this is a really cool, like, you know, idea and story. And so I've been trying to kind of go into it blind, as my friend suggested, and I've been really, really liking it. So I like to have like a good enough idea that I know it's something I'm gonna like, but not knowing that much about it. It's this weird balance, but it's like I kind of always start to read a little bit of the review of the synopsis of the book, and then I like to look at the reviews, and that's kind of enough for me. And you know, I mean, worst comes to worst, I can just DNF it if I'm absolutely hating it. The next is one that is kind of random, but I have been wanting to read this book for a while, and I found 2 of his books at the thrift store, and it's like the same edition. The first is called A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman, I don't know. And the second is called Bear Town, and they both have really amazing reviews. And what I've heard, or what I read briefly, is that this one's a little bit more like one of those things where it's like, I think a lot of times books can get it wrong and it can come across as really tacky when they're trying to be heartwarming, and it can fall into a lot of cliches. But what I heard is that this is heartwarming, and it's not the best thing you're ever going to read in your entire life, but it's probably something that's going to make you be like, and then it just kind of has that way about it. And so I'm excited for A Man Called Ove, but then I also heard that Bear Town is kind of like a departure from his normal writing style, and that it's a bit darker and it doesn't have that like whimsy about it. And so I'm excited to get into both of these. I think he seems like a very readable author, and I'm excited to see what he has. The next is one I'm super stoked for. This is called, oh, now an AMC original series. I didn't know that. It's called The Terror by Dan Simmons. And this is a book that is based off of the HMS Terror, which was part of the 1845 Franklin expeditions to, I think, the Antarctic or the Arctic Circle. And so it's like kind of dealing with a lot of these elements of like the really harsh, terrifying realities of being in the 1800s with their limited communication abilities, limited to next to nothing technology, and all of that. And then being somewhere like the Arctic Circle, being so isolated, the terror of that. And then I think he also brings in some kind of like sci-fi elements. And so this book also has really amazing reviews, and it's a beefy book, but oh my god, guys, the flop on this bad boy is just, oh, it's everything. But it's a good, let's see, almost 800 pages, and so I'm excited to read it. I'm kind of nervous to read it. I'm just hoping I can get through it. Sometimes I get hung up on how long a book is, and I'm afraid to start in on it. I think we all kind of deal with that, unless you're one of those weirdos who only likes massive books. But I am really excited, and it's something that I have wanted to read for a hot minute. So I'm super stoked that I found this at the thrift store. Hoping to get a thumbnail out of that one. Okay, the last 3 are kind of random, but this one is Cold Mountain by Charles Fraser. This is one that I feel like it's like a movie with like Nicole Kidman. Am I imagining things? I feel like this was like a late 90s, early 2000s movie with Nicole Kidman, and I think it's kind of like based off like World War I. Basically, I think it's, okay, sorry, I had to pause to kind of read up. I think it's based off that movie. I could probably figure it out more, but maybe it is, maybe it's not. I heard really good things about it. Gonna close my curtain again. It was a little bit more light than I thought it was. But yeah, I feel like this is based off of that movie with Nicole Kidman from like a while ago, but I could be wrong. but I think it's about a soldier's journey home after the First World War. And as it said on the back, I just saw savagery and splendor. Yeah, that sounds pretty dope. I will read about that for sure. No, not the First World War, maybe the Civil War? I'm not sure. But we'll see. It had also really good reviews. The next one is Lilac Girls. I am unsure if this was a good purchase because I've heard conflicting reviews and it's like a cool storyline, but the writing's kind of eh. And the writing does matter to me. I know some people are like writing heavy, plot heavy. There's some people are plot, some people are character development. You know, everybody has their kind of thing. And for me, I would say I would sacrifice a little bit in each. I'm like that person that wants like, you know, like the perfect car for like the cheapest. Like I just want a car that's good on gas and is kind of new but not too new, and you know, has had it's tuned up, and you know, but I only want it for like $5,000. It's like, yeah, you and everyone else. But I feel like that's kind of how I'm with writing. I don't overly love like when it's a book that's just all about like the characters and just like their development and their, what do they call them, like where it's just like nothing happens in the plot. I don't love that. And when it's too much on plot and like the characters feel really hollow, I don't like that. And when like maybe both of those elements are there, the characters are good, the plot is interesting, but the writing is just shite, don't like that either. So I like a little bit of each. I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of each to kind of get that trifecta. But yeah, I just heard kind of mixed things, but I also heard good things, and we'll see. But it's actually a lot heftier than I thought it would be. It's like 500 pages of small print, so we will see. But it's like a World War II story, I think, about kind of like 3 stories that you wouldn't imagine to be kind of woven together, and so that's what I think it's about. But again, I don't like to look into it too much. All I do know is that it is surrounding World War II, or the events of World War II. And the last one here that I have is The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. It has been one that I've been wanting to read for a while because I love the cover. I don't know what it is about this cover. I just find it very striking in the title. But I got the large print. It was like just what was there, and I was like, oh, that's interesting that her books are in such large font. And yeah, that's why it's if I would have looked, it's Harper Lux. I don't know, it just says where did it say it? Oh yeah, seeing is believing, larger print. So it doesn't really matter too much. Can I open it now? Kind of. It doesn't really matter too much to me, but yeah, large print on that one. And I think that this one is about like kind of like a dysfunctional but looks perfect family, but I could also be wrong because again, I am just trying to show you what I got at the thrift store. I'm not trying to give you a plot synopsis. I'm not trying to tell you every detail about the book. If you are interested in any of these, I would recommend you look them up on Goodreads, but not too much. And then lastly, I have a couple of Christian books. So if you are not interested in that, which I suspect the majority of you might not be, then please feel free to click out. So I have this book called Keeping the Sabbath Holy. I love the pastor John Mark Comer, and I follow his teachings a lot, and he recommended this book. And you know, it's like chapter heading here: ceasing anxiety, worry, and tension, ceasing productivity and accomplishment. So it's just like this idea of slowing down in life and those kinds of things, which it's kind of odd because I don't feel like I do a lot, but I feel like I remember there's this book by these people who worked at Google. I think it's called Make Time. It's the name of the book. And they talk about how there's multiple ways of being busy, and the 2 most common are like the busy bandwagon and infinity pools. And for me, I definitely do not tend to fall into the busy bandwagon category. I have no problem saying no to things I don't want to do. What I do have a problem with is being on my phone like a zombie all day. So things like this where it talks about the just idea of like living a balanced and intentional life, really I gravitate towards. And then this book, Anything, The Prayer That Unlocked My God and My Soul, by Jenny Allen. She is the one who started If Gathering, and this book I think is about her just praying like, God, I'll do anything, and just like where her life went from that point and the direction that things went and how so many things like opened up and how it changed her life, and I find that really inspiring. So those are all the books that I got from the thrift store recently. Oh my gosh, I need to start reading them, because what I do is I do this where I get like 10 books and then I get overwhelmed, and that's how I end up with like hundreds of books that I haven't read. Also, can anybody else relate to the thrift store being so expensive? It is $2.99 USD for paperbacks and like $3.99 I think for hardbacks. I actually found this beautiful set of 1979, the complete something works of George Eliot, and it had all of his works in this pretty little box set from 1979, and I was gonna get it, and they were gonna charge me for each little tiny friggin' paper, well, not little if you know George Eliot, but like some of them were little, some of them weren't, but they were gonna charge me for each paperback in this thing, and I'm just like, come on, like, just, thrift store. This is a thrift store. This isn't in your collectibles section. This is just in the book section. Like, ooh, it made me mad. So I just left it there. I was just like, freaking forget it. Okay, I'm not trying to remortgage my house to get this. But it did make me sad. So anyways, that is what I got from the thrift store. I hope you all have a great day, night, evening, whatever. My head's kind of hurting. I don't know, just in a weird mood, but I'm glad that I showed you these. So, ta-ta!